Welcome to At the Coolidge. Today I'm speaking with Nancy Campbell, who is, how do I describe what you do with the Independent Film Festival of Boston?
I'm technically the managing director of the Independent Film Festival of Boston.
Right. First time here. This is really great to have you.
Thank you
because
for having
Nancy
me.
knows everything
I don't
about
know
movies.
everything. I can't live up to that.
But you see a lot of films with the
I do.
Independent Film Festival of Boston, which is Boston's best independent film festival.
Well,
No
thank
question.
you.
Best film festival.
I appreciate
The
that.
Jewish Film Festival gets the most people.
It does.
It's a limited.
And it is very good for what it does.
It is, definitely.
And, you know, we do hope that someday we get as many people as they do.
Yeah, but as a result, you have to watch a lot of films.
We do. We watch a lot of films from the whole spectrum of potential topics.
So the film we're talking about today is Pray the Devil Back to Hell, directed by Gina Ratikas?
Let's go with it.
Okay, we'll go with that. And you can look it up on YouTube. And Abigail Disney produced it. Anyway, basically it's two women, and the story is about the women's peace movement in Liberia. And we were talking earlier about it. Liberia, which was taken over by Charles Taylor, brutal dictator. And Barack Obama, Charles Taylor, you and I, and one of the terrorists of 9/11 all lived in Somerville, Massachusetts.
It's true.
I'm not sure what the theme there is, except that's pretty interesting.
It is.
And some of the things you were saying, so we can talk about the women's peace movement, because this film moves like an action adventure. It's so filled with plot, and they cut out a lot.
They do.
As well. But it moves so fast that you're actually surprised. They underplay how brutal and how chaotic the women's peace movement was, and to say peace movement is to make our peace movement here look tame, because the chaos in Liberia and the brutality in Liberia and what they had to do as women against the culture of men in Liberia is jaw-dropping, especially in an age now where we're really talking more about Africa, we're talking more about the power of women, and so there's all these themes underneath Pray the Devil Back to Hell, which I find really timely and remarkable.
They definitely are. I mean, it's a level of atrocity that as Americans, I don't think we will ever be able to fully comprehend. I think that it's a good place to start is maybe to talk about the history of it, because, they definitely hone in on this particular topic, but, having that background also I think is extremely helpful.
The takeover by Charles Taylor, and I mean, their protest alone was 2.5 years, but the Civil War was a decade or
long.
more. Yeah.
Definitely.
And we're talking about, those kinds of chopping off limbs and brutal rapes, and worst of all, and they do make it very clear, child soldiers on drugs, and maybe the only look that the commercial world has of that might be Blood Diamond, where you actually get to see how that works.
And there is a connection between what was happening in Liberia with the whole Blood Diamond trade. There's just so much corruption at almost every level, and Charles Taylor had an affiliation with, like, Pat Robertson, who had an affiliation with the Blood Diamond trade. There's a lot of speculation about, all the connections that can be made, and I really encourage people to go and research those things as well, because they're incredibly compelling. But what is compelling about this particular documentary is that these women were able to, in light of all of that, join together across religious lines. These were both Christian women and Muslim women, which was, something that fractured that country as well, is the division between those religions. And they wiped that line away and wanted to regain the whole humanity of the country. They'd seen their husbands die, they'd seen their daughters raped, they'd seen their sons either murdered or become murderers,
And when you hear these facts, you're going, am I missing something here? How are you talking to me on film and telling me about this peace movement and singing and chanting and holding hands and barring people in buildings? How do you have the nerve to do this if what you told me about these atrocities is actually true? It's inconceivable.
It is, and it took a lot of strong women together. And I think that they really emphasize, the gender qualities and the positive qualities of women, which are their ability to communicate, their ability to nurture and protect, and very negative qualities of men and their ability to rehabilitate them.
Especially in that culture.
In that culture, very much so. And how that sort of was evolving, that they were able to take essentially these thugs and these children at all ages who had gone wild and try to pull them back
Yeah.
into, their mother's care.
Charles Taylor at one point said, "We're going to reconstruct the minds of our people." I mean, this is Pol Pot. This is as brutal as it gets. Just let everybody kill everybody else. Let your neighbors, let your children kill their own families, their own neighbors, their own communities, and total chaos. And I'll build the society from there.
But, that happened on both sides. Even LURD, which is Liberia, what is that? Something reconciliation and democracy. Like they were trying to, they had this name that implied that they were going to do good, but they were the same. One of their members basically said that they were going to cut a swath of atrocity down to Monrovia, take it over, kill all the men, take all the women, and repopulate the country. Right. That is just, an unbelievable plan to have.
And in light of this, these women decide this is the only way to do it, is to take all the things that we represent as women, mothers, that we're your daughters, and push it and push it and push it to the point where it worked. And there's a woman president in Liberia now.
Absolutely, which, is something, and definitely shows that the country wants peace, that they want those qualities that those women exhibited, not the qualities of terror and, sheer violence that had happened in the past. And that's just a lot to achieve, and really
and when
not
you say
a long time.
The qualities of women, too, there's even one point where there's the peace talks in Ghana, which go on for a long time. It's basically like a big party of everybody that wants to show, or, they're warlords. And they've never had any real luxuries with that, but they want power, they want money, so they're partying at the peace talks, basically. And the women say, no, these are going to be peace talks. They surround the building, and they don't let them out.
Until they actually negotiate.
Exactly. And at one point, the security guards come up. This is an amazing moment in the movie. We're going to take you, we're going to arrest you. And she says, I will strip naked. And this is a complete insult to an African man in a situation like that. To see your mother naked is actually a curse, right? I think that's why she explains it. And stops the security guards from removing them. And they trap the entire peace process in the building with just their bodies, their signs, their chants. Old women, young women.
Well, I think it also expresses the power of female sexuality. And that is just mythologically true in every culture, that when women, reveal their sexuality, they've been able to, like, it reminds me of this folklore in Japan where a woman is confronted by a demon and she exposes her gender to the demon, and that frightens him so much that he goes back to hell. So, like, that is sort of mythologically and at the base of every culture, there's a fear of female sexuality, probably because, women are clothed and our sexuality is inside of us, as opposed to male sexuality, which is very external. So it's not, it has a resonance and a power that I think is interesting, and I think that it's interesting that she threatened him in that way, and that it is a threat in their culture as well. So powerful, like that moment when they bar these men in and tell them that they have to do this thing, and that they get to the point where they have a female leader who can be amongst that group, and be in those negotiations. And how much they went through to be at those peace negotiations. These women are poor. This country is totally devastated. The warlords had taken everything in their path. They pilfered that country. Charles Taylor had embezzled and taken a lot of money, left the entire population extremely poor. And they managed to raise enough money to send representatives to Ghana to be there for that. And, their dedication to this is something that is just so amazing.